I'm 58 years old. For 23 years, I have not told anyone about what we found in the water near the Great Barrier Reef in April 2001. My name is Dr. Ellen Marsh, and I used to be a scientist who studies ocean life. I spent 15 years studying coral reefs and fish, writing reports about coral dying and how many fish lived in different places, and teaching college students at James Cook University. That job ended the night we pulled something into our boat's water tank that looked at me, with eyes that knew exactly what we had done to it. What I am about to tell you really happened. I have the work papers, the diving records, and the equipment lists. What I don't have anymore are the videos, the photos, or the real proof. That all disappeared within 72 hours after we came back to land, along with any records showing that our trip ever happened at all. But I was there. I saw her, and she told me the truth about why 7 divers went missing from a 12 square mile area of reef between January and March of 2001. This is the story of how a normal investigation became the reason I can't look at the ocean the same way anymore. The Australian Maritime Safety Authority called me on March 28, 2001. 7 divers had gone missing from the waters near Osprey Reef over 3 months. Osprey Reef is far away, about 80 miles off the coast of Queensland. You can only get there by boats that carry divers and let them stay overnight. The reef itself drops down into very deep water, which brings experienced divers who are good with their equipment and know what they can and cannot do. The first person to disappear was on January 14th, Marcus Chen, a 34-year-old diving teacher from Sydney who had dived over 2,000 times, went down to 40 meters on the reef's eastern wall and never came back up. His diving partner said that Marcus gave the signal that he was okay, then swam around a coral rock. When the partner followed 30 seconds later, Marcus was gone. No body, no pieces of equipment, no sign of anything. The second disappearance was on February 3rd. To divers this time, a married couple from Brisbane. Same place, same depth, same reef wall. They were diving together, which meant they should have been able to help each other if something went wrong. Their dive computer information that was saved on the boat showed they went down normally, then stopped working at the same time at 38 meters. The last time recorded was 11:47 A.M. By March, 3 more divers had disappeared, all experienced, all from that same part of the reef. The Australian Water Police investigated and found nothing. No signs of shark attacks, no equipment that broke in ways they could find, no bodies found even after they searched a lot. The water currents in that area were not strong enough to sweep bodies away quickly. Tiger sharks were there, but tiger shark attacks leave proof: blood, ripped wetsuits, disturbed sea life. There was none of that. The safety authorities thought it was equipment breaking down combined with strong downward currents. Divers could have been pulled deeper, gotten confused from too much nitrogen in their air, and drowned in water too deep to search. But I had looked at the information from their dive computers. They went down in a controlled way. The disappearances were sudden, and they all happened in a group area measuring about 12 square miles, centered on one specific part of Osprey's eastern wall. That is why they called me. I had spent 8 years studying that reef system, making maps of coral, tracking fish groups, and writing down seasonal movement patterns. I knew those waters. I had dived that exact wall dozens of times, and I had never seen anything. That would explain 7 people disappearing. Without any trace, I put together my report. suggestions on March 30th. I said we should do a week-long research trip with underwater cameras, sonar mapping, and careful recording of any unusual ocean activity in the target area. The authority said yes within 48 hours and gave us money for renting a boat, equipment, and a small research team. They wanted answers before the tourist season brought more divers to the area. On April 2nd, 2001, I got on the research boat Meridian in Cairns. The boat was a 68-foot catamaran with dive air compressors, camera sleds, sonar equipment, and a 2,000-liter seawater holding tank we normally used for keeping sea animals temporarily. The crew was Captain Ray Thompson, who had been running dive trips to Osprey for 30 years, 2 college students studying ocean life that I had worked with before, David Ortiz and Sarah Kim, and a 3-person documentary crew led by a producer named Alex Chen, who had somehow convinced the authority to let him come along in exchange for paying part of the trip costs. I did not want the documentary crew there. Research trips are not performances, and having cameras around changes how people act. But the money was tight, and Alex's production company was paying for the underwater camera equipment we needed. So I agreed, but only if I got to approve any footage they used. We left Cairns Harbor at 6 a.m. on April 3rd. The weather was clear. The seas were calm, and the forecast looked good for the whole week. It took us 9 hours to reach Osprey Reef. We dropped anchor at 3:15 p.m. in 30 meters of water, about 200 meters from the eastern wall where the disappearances had happened. I did a first dive that afternoon with Ray, just to look at the site and plan where to put our cameras. The visibility was excellent, easily 40 meters. The reef was healthy, coral coverage was thick, and fish populations looked normal. Reef sharks swam along the wall, groupers hid in cracks. Schools of trevally swirled in the blue water beyond the reef edge. Everything looked exactly as it should, but Ray noticed something I had missed. As we swam back to the boat, he grabbed my arm and pointed upward toward the surface. I looked up and saw only our anchor line and the bottom of the Meridian outlined against the sunlight. He signaled again, more urgent, and made a sweeping motion around us, back on the boat. After we took off our gear, Ray said it quietly. "No dolphins, no turtles. You see any?" I had not, and he was right. Osprey Reef was known for its group of bottlenose dolphins that lived there, and the green sea turtles that ate on the reef flats. I had never done a dive here without seeing at least 1 or 2. But today, in perfect conditions, there had been none. 30 years I'd been coming here, Ray said. Never seen it this empty of big animals. Something's got them spooked. I wrote the observation in my research notes, but did not think much of it at the time. Marine animals move around. Maybe the dolphins were feeding somewhere else. Maybe the turtles were nesting. There could have been a dozen ordinary explanations. I did not know then that Ray had just found the first real clue to what was happening in those waters. We spent April 4th putting out our camera system. We had 6 underwater cameras, each in a pressure housing connected to battery packs that would keep them running for 48 hours. David and Sarah dove with me to place them at different points along the eastern wall, spacing them about 50 meters apart, covering the area where the disappearances had happened. The cameras had motion sensors and could work in low light. If anything bigger than a grouper moved where they could see, they would record. We aimed them outward from the reef wall toward the open ocean, thinking that if something was pulling divers away from the wall, we would capture it on video. Alex and his crew filmed us working. They were professional enough, staying out of the way during the actual dives. But Alex kept asking questions that showed he was hoping for something dramatic. What if it's a rogue great white? He asked that evening. What if there's a previously undocumented aggressive species? I told him the chance of a new large predator species in these heavily studied waters was basically zero. Great whites were rare this far north. The disappearances did not match any known predator attack pattern. We were looking for environmental factors, equipment problems, or human mistakes. But I was lying to myself as much as to him. 7 experienced divers don't disappear because of environmental factors. Not from the same location, not without leaving any proof. On April 5th, we got back the first 24 hours of camera footage. 4 of the 6 cameras had stopped working. Not dead batteries, not flooded housings. The recording system simply stopped working at different times during the night. The timestamp information showed they had all quit between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. The 2 cameras that kept working showed normal reef activity. A few sharks, some large groupers, a school of barracuda passing through. Nothing unusual, nothing that would cause equipment failure. Sarah checked the cameras we had brought back up. The electronics showed no water getting in, no obvious damage. It's like something disrupted them, she said. Electromagnetic interference, maybe. I had never heard of localized electromagnetic interference strong enough to kill camera systems. 50 meters apart, but leave everything else working. Our boat's electronics were fine. Our dive computers had worked normally. It did not make sense. We put out the cameras again on April 6th, this time with extra shielding on the electronic parts. I also positioned them differently, creating a tighter group in the area where 3 of the divers had disappeared. If something was in that specific area, I wanted overlapping coverage that night. April 6th, at 11:30 p.m. I was in the boat's small lab reviewing fish species information when Alex knocked on the door. He had a laptop with him and an expression I could not quite read. "You need to see this," he said. He had been reviewing the footage from our second camera deployment, the one we had just brought back that evening. Most of it was the same as before. Normal reef life, some sharks, nothing unusual. But at timestamp 3:47 a.m., one camera had captured something before its recording system failed. Alex played the clip. The camera was aimed along the reef wall. Visibility was less in the darkness despite the low light ability. For the first few seconds, nothing moved. Then, at the very edge of the frame, something passed. It was there for maybe 2 seconds, never fully in frame, just a shape moving parallel to the reef. It was too large to be a shark. Wrong body shape for a grouper. The movement was smooth, almost gliding, and at one point, just before it left the frame, I saw what might have been an arm reaching outward, fingers spread. "Play it again," I said. Alex did. I watched it 5 times. The shape was like a human. The movement was wrong for any fish species. And the way it moved its limb, if that is what it was, showed purpose. Not the automatic response of a swimming animal. Could be a diver, Alex said. Maybe someone else is diving the site at night. No dive boats have been here except us, I said. Ray monitors the radio. We would know, then what is it? I did not answer. I could not answer because the sensible explanations did not fit what I was seeing. And the crazy explanations were not something I was ready to think about. David and Asara looked at the footage the next morning. David thought it might be a large ray filmed at a strange angle. Sarah said it could be a dolphin, except we had not seen any dolphins. Ray watched it once and walked away without saying anything. That afternoon, April 7th, Alex made his suggestion. We were sitting in the boat's main cabin, all 6 of us, talking about whether to continue the camera deployments or try a different approach. We bait it, Alex said. Whatever's down there, we draw it out. I started to object, but he continued. We have thawed tuna on board for the crew meals. We use the blood and some chunks of fish. We run a bait line off the back right over the target area. If there's a predator, it'll investigate. This isn't Shark Week, I said. We're conducting a safety investigation, not making entertainment. 7 people are dead, Ellen. You said yourself the camera footage shows something. We need to know what it is. He was not wrong about that. The footage had shown something, and we were running out of time. The trip was scheduled for 7 days, and we had already used 5 of them with very few results. Ray surprised me by agreeing. I don't like it, but we're not getting answers sitting here watching cameras fail. If there's something hunting in these waters, maybe it's time to see what comes to dinner. I should have said no. I should have insisted we stick to observation-only rules. But I had seen that footage, and I had counted 7 missing divers, and I wanted answers as badly as Alex did. One night, I said, we run the bait line tonight. If nothing happens, we pack up tomorrow and head back. We prepared the bait line that afternoon. Alex had brought several kilos of frozen tuna, which we thawed and cut into chunks. We mixed the blood with seawater in a bucket, creating a trail we could release slowly into the current. The line itself was heavy test fishing line made for large sharks, with multiple hooks spaced along its length. We put it out at 9 p.m., running it off the back, letting it sink to about 25 meters. The current would carry the scent along the reef wall right through the area where the disappearances had happened. I stayed up watching. So did Ray and Alex. David and Sarah had the early morning shift, so they had gone to sleep. The documentary crew had their cameras ready, mounted on the back rail. Night vision turned on dot. At 11:30 p.m., nothing had happened. The line hung slack in the water. The boat rocked gently in the calm seas. I was starting to think we had wasted an evening when Ray stood up suddenly. Line's moving, he said. I looked. He was right. The fishing line had gone tight, angling down and away from the boat. Not the sharp strike of a shark hitting bait, but a steady, strong pull. Could be current, I said, but I did not believe it. Ray started pulling in the line, hand over hand. It was heavy, resisting. About 15 meters of line came back in. Then it jerked hard enough that Ray stumbled forward. Something's on it, he said. Something big. Alex, get your cameras ready. Alex was already filming. I moved to help Ray, grabbing the line behind him. We pulled together, gaining maybe a meter at a time. Whatever was down there was not fighting violently like a hooked shark would. It was resisting steadily. Dead weight, combined with occasional surges, we got maybe 10 more meters of line in when the boat suddenly lurched to the left. Not a wave, not wind. Something had pulled the back sideways. We need to cut it, I said. This is too much weight. It's going to flip us over. Hold on, Ray said. He grabbed a gaff hook. 5 more meters. Let's see what we've got. We pulled. My hands burned from the line. The boat tilted further. Then suddenly the resistance stopped. The line went slack for a moment, then tight again, but lighter now. It's coming up, Ray said. We pulled faster. the water off the back began to churn. I saw shapes in the darkness, something breaking the surface, then going back under net. Ray shouted, "We need the net." Alex dropped his camera and grabbed the large research net we used for collecting specimens, a reinforced mesh net with a tumeter opening. He lowered it into the water off the left side while Ray and I kept pulling the line. Whatever was on the line surfaced 6 feet from the boat. In the deck lights, I saw skin, grey-blue, slick with water. I saw an arm reaching upward, fingers spread, trying to grab the hull. "Get the net under it," Ray yelled. Alex plunged the net deeper, then scooped upward. Something tangled in the mesh, thrashing now. We pulled the net up together, all 3 of us pulling until we got it over the rail and onto the deck. It hit the deck hard, seawater spilling everywhere. For a moment, none of us moved. We just stared. It was shaped like a human, about 6 feet long, maybe slightly less. Grey-blue skin, smooth, no scales. The body was long and narrow, narrower than a human's. The arms were normal size, but ended in hands with webbed fingers, the webbing going to the first knuckle. The legs, if they were legs, merged into a tail structure. Not a fishtail like the mermaids in storybooks, but something more like joined limbs covered in the same smooth skin. The face was what stopped my breath. It was human enough to recognize, strange enough to be wrong. Eyes larger than human eyes, positioned slightly more to the sides. No nose you could see, just 2 slits above a mouth that was too wide. The skull was long backward, shaped for swimming through water. She opened her eyes. They were dark, almost black, no white showing, and she looked directly at me. I saw intelligence in those eyes. I saw awareness, and I saw anger. "Jesus Christ," Alex whispered. "What is it?" Ray moved first. He grabbed a tarp and threw it over her, blocking our view. "Get it in the tank," he said. "Now, before someone gets hurt." We dragged her, still tangled in the net, across the deck to the holding tank. The tank was built into the boat's left side, accessible from the deck. 2,000 liters of constantly circulating seawater we used for studying fish specimens. It was 2 meters long, 1.5 meters wide, maybe 1 meter deep. Too small for what we had caught. We lifted her over the edge and into the water. She sank immediately, the net still partially wrapped around her. Through the reinforced viewing window on the side of the tank, I watched her twist and pull until she had freed herself from the mesh. Then she floated there, upright in the water, and stared out at us through the glass. Ray turned to Alex. "Whatever you just filmed, it doesn't exist. Understand?" Alex nodded slowly, his face pale. I knelt by the viewing window. She was still watching me. Her chest moved, gills on her neck opening and closing. She was breathing. She was alive, and we had just pulled her out of her home and trapped her in a tank, barely big enough for her to turn around. What do we do now? Sarah had appeared on deck, woken by the noise. She looked from the tank to me, waiting for me to make a decision. I should have said we release her right away. I should have said we pretend this never happened. Instead, I said, we keep her for 24 hours. We document everything. Then we decide. That was the choice I will regret for the rest of my life. I did not sleep. None of us did. We sat in the main cabin, lights low, drinking coffee that had gone cold hours ago, trying to understand what was in the holding tank 10 feet away. Ray had taken the first watch. sitting on deck beside the tank, making sure she did not somehow escape or die before we figured out what to do with her. Alex had already uploaded his footage to 3 separate encrypted cloud storage accounts, just in case, he said. If something happens to the physical drives, this exists somewhere. If something happens, David asked, what's going to happen? I had been thinking about that, about what happens when you catch something that is not supposed to exist, about the research vessels that had reported unusual sonar contacts in the past, contacts that disappeared from official records, about the ocean scientists I had known who had found strange remains and had their samples taken, away by government agencies they had never heard of. We need to be smart about this, I said. No outside communication until we're back at port. No radio calls, no satellite internet, nothing. If word gets out that we have this, we won't be the ones deciding what happens next. Sarah looked at me. You think someone would take it from us? I think 7 divers disappeared from these waters in 3 months. I think we just caught something that might explain why. And I think if the wrong people find out, we'll never see it again. At 4:30 a.m., I went up on deck. Ray was still there, sitting on an equipment box, staring at the tank. The creature, she was visible through the viewing window, floating motionless in the water. She hasn't moved in an hour, Ray said. Just floats there, watching. I knelt by the viewing window. She shifted position immediately, her eyes tracking me. Up close, through the glass, I could see more details. Her skin was not all the same. It had subtle patterns, darker patches along her sides and back, lighter along her front. Protective coloring like a dolphin or shark. Her hands rested at her sides, fingers spread. The webbing between them was see-through, showing tiny blood vessels. Ray, I said quietly, you've been diving these waters for 30 years. Have you ever seen anything like this before? He was silent for a long time. Then, stories. Old stories from the islanders, from the Kanak people in New Caledonia, from fishermen in Papua New Guinea. Things in the deep water that looked like people but weren't. Things that would take divers who went too deep or stayed too long. I always figured it was just tales, you know, ways to explain drownings, to keep people from taking stupid risks. But I've seen things over the years that didn't add up. Equipment failures in specific areas, dive computers that would glitch for no reason. That time in '94, when a whole pod of pilot whales beached themselves at Osprey for no reason anyone could explain. And the dolphins, Ellen, the dolphins don't come here anymore. They used to be everywhere. Now they avoid this whole section of reef. I watched her through the glass. She watched back. We can't keep her, I said. This tank is too small. She can barely move. I know, but Alex is going to want to study her. He's already talking about bringing in specialists, getting tissue samples, mapping her DNA. She's not a specimen, tell him that. Alex appeared on deck at 5:15 a.m., carrying his camera and a notepad. I want to try something, he said. Communication attempt. See if she responds to sounds, gestures, anything. She's been in that tank for 3 hours, I said. She's probably terrified. All the more reason to try to communicate. If she's intelligent, if she understands we're not going to hurt her, maybe she'll calm down. I did not think she would calm down. We had yanked her out of the ocean with a hook and net, trapped her in a tank, and kept her under bright lights. Surrounded by creatures she probably saw as threats or food or both. But Alex was right about one thing. If she was intelligent, we needed to know. "Fine," I said, "but keep your distance. Don't put your hands near the tank." Alex set up his camera on a tripod aimed at the viewing window, then knelt in front of the glass. She shifted immediately, moving to face him directly. "Can you understand me?" Alex said clearly. No response. She floated, watching. Alex raised his hand and waved. She did not react. He tried knocking on the glass. A simple rhythm. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Nothing. "This isn't working," David said. He had come up with Sarah, both of them watching from the rail. Then she moved. She raised her right hand and tapped the glass from inside. 3 times. Pause. 3 times. Exactly matching Alex's rhythm. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. Alex knocked again, a different pattern. For quick taps, pause, to slow taps. She repeated it perfectly. "She understands," Alex said. "She's responding. This is communication. This is pattern matching," I said. "Parrots can do that. It doesn't mean she understands meaning." But I did not believe what I was saying. The way she watched us, the way she had responded immediately to Alex's knock, the deliberateness of her movements. This was not a trained animal doing tricks. This was someone trying to interact. Alex spent the next hour trying different things. Hand signals, which she did not respond to. Speaking slowly, which produced no reaction. Writing words on a whiteboard and holding it up to the glass, which she looked at but did not acknowledge. Then he tried something else. He pulled up an audio file on his laptop, a recording of dolphin sounds from a previous project. He played it through a small speaker held near the glass. She reacted instantly. Her body language changed, becoming more alert. She moved closer to the glass, her head tilted, listening. When the recording stopped, she made a sound. It came from somewhere in her throat or chest. A low-frequency click, almost like sonar. Then another, slightly different in pitch. "She's trying to respond," Sarah said. "Play it again." Alex replayed the dolphin sounds. She listened, then made her own sequence of clicks and low tones. It was not random. It had structure, phrasing, like language. "We need an underwater speaker," I said. "If she's using sound to communicate, she needs to hear us properly, and we need to hear her clearly. Sound travels differently in water." We had an underwater speaker, part of our equipment for studying fish responses to sonar. Ray got it from storage and attached it inside the tank, connected to Alex's laptop. We also put in a waterproof microphone, so we could record her sounds clearly. Alex played the dolphin sounds again through the underwater speaker. The clarity was immediate. She responded with a longer sequence of clicks and tones. Her body pointed toward the speaker. "She's talking to us," Alex said. "We just need to figure out what she's saying." I sat down by the viewing window. She was still watching me. Not Alex, not the speaker, me. "Why divers?" I said. "Is that what you want to know? Why we're asking about the missing divers?" She did not respond to my voice, but I saw something change in her expression. A small shift that I could not quite understand. I pulled out my phone and found a photo I had saved from the investigation briefing. Marcus Chen, the first missing diver, smiling in his wetsuit on a boat deck. I held the phone up to the glass. Her reaction was immediate and clear. She moved backward in the tank, as far from the glass as she could get. Her mouth opened, showing teeth I had not seen before. Triangular, sharp. The sound she made was sharp, aggressive. She recognizes him. Ray said quietly, or she recognizes what he represents. I lowered the phone. She stayed at the back of the tank, her body language defensive. Now the divers, I said, more to myself than to anyone else. She knows what happened to them. She was there, or her people were there. Alex was already typing on his laptop. We need to establish a communication protocol, build a vocabulary. If we can teach her to understand specific sounds or patterns, we can ask questions. We can find out what happened. We don't have time for that, Ray said. We've got maybe 18 hours before we have to make a decision about what to do with her. You want to teach her English in 18 hours? I want to try. I stayed by the tank while the others went to plan their approach. The sun was coming up, light spreading across the water. She had moved back to the center of the tank, floating upright again, watching me. I thought about the missing divers, about Marcus Chen signaling he was fine, then disappearing 30 seconds later, about the married couple whose dive computers stopped recording at the same time, about the complete absence of bodies, of equipment, of any physical proof. What did they do to you? I said quietly, the divers, what did they do? She did not respond, but she did not look away either. At 2:47 a.m. on April 8th, something hit our bait line. I was below deck trying to sleep and failing when Ray's shout brought me running. By the time I reached the back, Ray and Alex were already pulling in line, both of them struggling with the weight. It's not a shark, Ray said through gritted teeth. Sharks fight different. This is pulling steady, like it knows what it's doing. I grabbed the line behind them. The braided fishing line cut into my palms, even through my gloves. Whatever was down there had a lot of weight and was not panicking. A hooked shark would be thrashing, running, trying to break free. This felt controlled, almost like whatever was on the other end was choosing to resist rather than escape. We pulled together, gaining maybe half a meter at a time. The boat's backlights reflected off the dark water, showing nothing but our anchor line and the tight bait line angling down into the depths. David appeared on deck with a spotlight, sweeping it across the surface. There, he said, pointing. Something's breaking the surface. I looked where he pointed and saw a disturbance in the water about 10 meters off the back. Not splashing, not the wild turbulence of a fighting fish, just smooth movement. Something large moving just below the surface. Then the boat lurched hard to the left. The sudden shift almost threw me into the rail. Ray lost his grip on the line and it started running back out, burning through his gloves as he tried to catch it again. "Cut it," I shouted. "We're going to flip over." 10 more meters, Ray said. He had gotten his hold on the line again. "I want to see what this is." I should have insisted. I should have grabbed a knife and cut the line myself. Instead, I helped him pull. The boat tilted further. Water sloshed over the left rail. Sarah had come up from below and was hanging onto the cabin door frame, her eyes wide. Alex had left the line and grabbed his camera, filming everything. "Ray," I said, "we have to cut it." Then the resistance stopped. The line went slack so suddenly that we all stumbled backward. For a moment, I thought whatever was on the hook had broken free. Then the line snapped tight again, but lighter now, less weight. "It's coming up," Ray said. "Fast. Get the net ready." David dropped the spotlight and grabbed our research net, the heavy reinforced mesh we used for collecting large fish specimens. The net had a 2-meter opening and could hold several hundred kilograms, in theory. We had used it to catch reef sharks for tagging studies. I kept pulling line with Ray. My shoulders burned. My hands were numb, but we were gaining line quickly now. Whatever was coming up was not resisting anymore. The water off the back began churning. I saw movement. Something dark breaking the surface, then going back under. David positioned the net, ready to scoop. Now, Ray shouted. Something surfaced 6 feet from the boat. In the deck lights, I saw skin, not scales. Skin, grey-blue, smooth, reflecting the light with an almost metallic shine. I saw an arm reaching upward out of the water, fingers spread, trying to grab the boat's hull. The hand had 5 fingers. They were webbed. "Get the net under it," Ray was yelling. But his voice sounded far away. David plunged the net down and scooped. I heard him grunt with effort as he lifted. Whatever was in the net was not fighting, just dead weight. We all grabbed the net's edges and pulled together, pulling it up and over the rail. It hit the deck with a wet thud. Seawater streamed off the mesh, pooling round our feet. For several seconds, none of us moved. We just stared at what we had caught. She was about 6 feet long from head to the end of her tail structure. The tail was not like anything I had seen on marine animals I had studied. It was not a fishtail, not the horizontal flukes of a dolphin or the vertical fin of a shark. It was more like joined legs, still showing the shape of 2 limbs, but covered in the same smooth grey-blue skin as her body, tapering to a point. Her body was shaped like a human, narrow waist, defined rib structure visible beneath the skin, shoulders that looked useful for swimming. The arms were normal size for her body, ending in those webbed hands. 5 fingers on each, the webbing going to the first knuckle. The fingers were longer than human fingers, more delicate, but it was her face that made my hands start shaking. The skull was long, more shaped for water than a human skull, but the features were recognizable. Eyes positioned forward, suggesting she could see depth. A mouth currently closed. The nose was just 2 slits above the mouth, flat with the face. No outside ears, just small holes on the sides of her head. She opened her eyes. They were large, positioned slightly more to the sides than human eyes, giving her a wider field of vision. The colored parts were dark, almost black, with no white showing, and they focused on me immediately. I saw awareness in those eyes. Not the blank stare of a fish, not the automatic wariness of a wild animal. Something that looked at me and understood what I was. Her mouth opened slightly, showing teeth. They were triangular, pointed, arranged in rows like a shark's teeth, but smaller, more numerous. She made a sound, a low-frequency sound that I felt in my chest more than heard. "Jesus Christ," Alex whispered. He had lowered his camera, just staring. "What is it?" Ray moved first. He grabbed a tarp from the equipment box and threw it over her, blocking our view. "Stop looking and start moving," he said. "We need to get it in the tank before it dies or someone gets bitten." The tarp helped somehow, making it easier to treat what we had caught as cargo rather than a person. We dragged her, still partially tangled in the net, across the deck to the holding tank. The tank was built into the boat's left side, a 2,000-liter system we had used for temporarily housing fish specimens during research projects. It was 2 meters long, 1.5 meters wide, about 1 meter deep. The water inside was seawater, pumped and filtered continuously from the ocean around us. We lifted her over the tank's edge. She was heavier than she looked, probably 70 or 80 kilograms. When we lowered her into the water, she sank right away, the tarp and net dragging her down. Through the reinforced viewing window on the tank's side, I watched her struggle free. She twisted in the water, pulling at the net, her movements smooth and controlled despite the small space. After maybe 30 seconds, she had freed herself completely. The net and tarp drifted to the tank's bottom. She positioned herself upright in the water, her tail moving in small adjustments to keep her in place. Then she looked out through the viewing window, directly at me. Her chest moved. I could see it rising and falling. On her neck, just below where her jaw met her throat, gill slits opened and closed in rhythm. She was breathing the water, processing oxygen from it the same way a fish would. But she was not a fish. The intelligence in her eyes, the way she held herself, the deliberate way she was examining us through the glass. This was something else entirely. Ray turned to Alex. Whatever footage you have, it doesn't exist. You understand me? That camera gets locked up, and we don't talk about what's in this tank until we figure out what the hell we're doing. Alex nodded, but I saw him glance at his camera bag. The footage was already uploaded, backed up, spread across cloud servers. Even if we destroyed every physical copy, it existed somewhere. Sarah had come up on deck. She looked at the tank, at the creature floating inside, and her face went pale. "That's not possible," she said quietly. "Aquatic humanoids' evolution to that degree. It's not possible. It's in the tank," David said. "Seems pretty possible to me." I was still kneeling by the viewing window. She was still watching me. Her expression, if that is what it was, had not changed. Not aggressive, not fearful, just watching. "What do we do now?" Sarah asked, looking at me. I should have said we release her right away. I should have insisted we were out of our depth, that we had no right to keep her trapped in a tank barely big enough for her to turn around. I should have remembered that 7 people had disappeared from these waters, and maybe there was a good reason for that. Instead, I said, we keep her for 24 hours. We document everything we can. Then we decide what to do next. That was the decision that still wakes me up at night, 23 years later. Because in that moment, looking at something that should not exist, trapped in a research tank, I chose science over compassion. I chose answers over doing what was right, and she knew it. I could see it in her eyes as she floated there, watching me through the glass. She knew exactly what I had decided and what it meant for her. I sat and watched beside the tank while the others went below to rest. It was 4 a.m. The deck lights created pools of yellow light that made the darkness beyond seem deeper. She floated upright in the center of the tank, motionless except for the small movements of her tail that kept her upright. The tank was too small. I had known it the moment we lowered her in, but seeing her now, unable to swim properly, unable to do anything but hover in place, made it worse. We designed this system for reef fish, for specimens we would keep for a few hours while we took measurements and tissue samples. Not for something her size, not for something that might be intelligent. She shifted position slightly, her eyes still tracking me. I had been sitting here for 20 minutes, and she had not looked away once. Not the empty stare of a fish, but focused attention. I pulled my laptop from my equipment bag and opened the file with the dive incident reports. 7 divers. 7 disappearances over 3 months. I read through them again, looking for patterns I might have missed. Marcus Chen, January 14th. Last seen swimming around a coral rock at 40 meters. His buddy followed 30 seconds later. Empty water, the married couple, February 3rd. Diving together, experienced, good air management. Both dive computers stopped recording at the same time at 38 meters. No distress signals. 3 more in March. All in the same general area. All experienced. All at depth. All disappeared without any physical proof left behind. I looked up at the tank. She was still watching me. "Did you see them?" I said quietly. "The divers? Were you there?" No response. She floated, her gills opening and closing steadily. I thought about what Ray had said. Stories from the islanders about things in the deep water that looked like people but were not. Things that would take divers who went too deep or stayed too long. I had dismissed those as folklore. The kind of warning tales every ocean culture developed to explain drownings and to keep people respectful of the ocean's dangers. But sitting here looking at her, I wondered what else I had dismissed as folklore that might have been observation. At 5:30 a.m. Ray came back on deck with 2 cups of coffee. He handed me one and sat down on the equipment box next to the tank. She moved at all. No, just watching. Ray looked through the viewing window. She shifted slightly to track him, then returned her attention to me. "Why you think?" Ray said. "What?" "She keeps looking at you, specifically. Alex tried to interact with her earlier. David, too. She looked at them, but she keeps coming back to you." Why? I did not have an answer. Maybe it was random. Maybe I had been the first face she had seen clearly when we pulled her onto the deck. Maybe she recognized that I was the one who had made the decision to keep her. "We can't keep her long," Ray said. "Even if we wanted to, this tank isn't big enough. She'll die in here. I know. So what's the plan?" "We document her. Then what? Release her? Turn her over to authorities? Try to study her?" "I don't know yet." Ray was quiet for a moment. "Then, when I was younger, maybe 25, I was diving off New Caledonia. Night dive. Just me and one other guy. We were at about 30 meters, and I saw something in my light beam. Just for a second. Something with hands, swimming away from us into the dark. I told myself it was a seal. Even though there are no seals in those waters. I told myself I had seen it wrong, that it was a trick of the light and nitrogen in my air making me confused. Why are you telling me this? Because I've been lying to myself for 33 years about what I saw. And you're about to start lying, too, if you haven't already. We're going to tell ourselves this is science, that we're documenting an unknown species, that we're expanding human knowledge. But that's not what this is. Then what is it? Ray looked at the tank. We caught someone. Not something, someone. And we need to decide if we're the kind of people who keep someone in a cage. He left me alone with that thought. The sky was starting to lighten in the east, the stars fading. She continued to watch me through the glass. At 6:15 a.m., Alex came up with his equipment. He had brought the underwater speaker and microphone along with his laptop and recording gear. "I want to try communication again," he said. "We got a response yesterday with the dolphin sounds. Maybe we can build on that." I did not object. If we were keeping her, and apparently we were, at least for now, then trying to communicate was less cruel than just leaving her trapped with no interaction. Alex set up the equipment, putting the underwater speaker inside the tank and positioning the waterproof microphone. She watched him work, her body language subtly changing. Not aggressive, but more alert. He played the dolphin sound recording through the underwater speaker. She responded right away. making a sequence of clicks and low-frequency tones that the microphone captured clearly. The sounds had structure, changes in pitch and rhythm that suggested complexity. "That's not random," Alex said, looking at the waveform on his laptop. "Look at the pattern. She's responding to specific frequencies in the dolphin calls with specific frequencies of her own." He played the recording again. She made a different sequence this time, shorter, with a distinct pattern of 3 clicks, followed by a long tone. "She's changing her response," I said. "That suggests she's trying different things to communicate, not just copying." Alex spent the next hour playing different sounds through the speaker. Whale songs, which she responded to with interest. Human speech, which produced no response. Recorded reef sounds, which she seemed to ignore. And then he tried something different. He played a recording of sonar pings, the kind research vessels use for mapping. Her reaction was immediate and clear. She moved backward in the tank as far as she could go, her body language defensive. She made a sharp, aggressive sound, teeth showing. "She doesn't like that," I said. "Stop it." Alex paused the recording. She stayed at the back of the tank, tense. "Interesting," Alex said. "Active sonar causes distress. That suggests she's sensitive to it. Maybe it's painful or disorienting. Or it suggests she associates it with danger," I said. "Research vessels use sonar. Dive boats use it. Maybe she's learned that sonar means humans nearby." Sarah had joined us on deck. She had brought her own laptop and was looking at the audio recordings Alex had made. "These sounds have syntax," she said. "I'm not saying it's language, not yet. But there's structured variation here. She's not just making noise. Can we build a communication system?" Alex asked. "Assign meanings to specific sounds. Teach her to respond to questions in 24 hours. No, maybe in 24 months if we had proper facilities, a team of language experts, animal behavior specialists, but not in a day." I was still watching her through the viewing window. She had moved back to the center of the tank, but her body language remained guarded. "What if we show her things instead?" I said, "Images. See if she recognizes them or responds." Alex pulled up photos on his laptop. We started simple. Images of fish she might recognize. A grouper, which produced no response. A reef shark, which she looked at but did not react to. A dolphin, which made her lean closer to the glass, examining it.